All right, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Let's get started. Thank you all for joining me. As you guys saw before the stream, I'm getting Antigravity set up. There are a couple of things left to do, but we'll worry about that later. Hey, Ole, welcome. Welcome to the stream. It looks like my stuff's not joined together. Give me just a second. Never mind. It's there. I just didn't have things set up properly. That one's on me. Let's see. We're transitioned over. We can get off of that. We're good. Whoops. Shut down all my streaming stuff on my web browser. That was good. Not what I intended to do. There we go. That done. Okay. All right. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about today. The first thing, I didn't get a chance to watch the Angular stuff from Google I/O. I watched the I/O stuff, the keynote and all of that, but I wasn't able to watch the Angular stuff that Mark presented. So I'm curious. I want to watch that. So I figured I would wait and watch it with you guys. So I haven't seen this before. Being at GDE, I know some of the stuff that's coming, but there's supposed to be something in here that as GDEs we didn't even know about. So if you guys have watched this before, please feel free to participate, talk about it. He does a flip. Michael was there. I'm jealous. This last week, my daughter graduated high school, and then yesterday, my wife's grandmother passed away. So there's a lot going on right now in the house and just in general. I'm here to stream mainly to just make sure that take my mind off of everything going on. So, hey, yeah, she was in her 90s, so it wasn't surprising. But Friday, we went to go visit her, and she was lucid and doing well. My youngest wanted a new dog, so she got a puppy. So we took the puppy in, and Grandma was talking and was recognizing everybody. She was suffering from Alzheimer's, so there was a bit of that going on, but she recognized everybody, was interacting with everybody. It was a good day. And then yesterday, she just deteriorated, and so I appreciate you guys saying that. But we're gonna stream. We're gonna watch. That's part of the reason why I am less prepared today than I would like to be, and part of the reason why I want to watch I/O with you guys. Well, not all of I/O. I want to watch specifically Mark's presentation at I/O on Angular. And I want to see what we think and what's coming. I'm going to turn on the desktop audio. So let's see how things go. Can you guys? How's the audio?
Here with you all. I'm so grateful for you.
Is the audio good? Do I need to turn it up, turn it down, anything like that for you guys? I did pause it, but hopefully it sounds good. Let me know if you guys want me to turn it up at all.
If you can,
I love
place
Mark.
your hands on the side of your seat right now.
I love Mark.
Because I want you to hold on. Because we're about to go through an exciting journey on what's new in Angular. If you are excited to know what's coming up, please make some noise. Oh, look at this. This is amazing. You folks are absolutely outstanding. In case you know me, my name is Mark. I am the DevRel lead on the Angular team here at Google. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for being in the room with me. And thank you to everyone at home who's watching and following along. Now, here's something interesting about how we've been working.
I think there's an echo.
Angular. See, we've worked.
An echo from the. It might be coming from my headphones. Let me adjust some things here.
To position ourselves as a solid foundation for building what's next on the web.
Are you hearing the echo still? Let me know.
We're talking about two main pillars or two main areas of focus. The first thing we're going to talk about are Angular's API updates and how we've changed the API surface. And then the second thing, which I know a lot of you are excited about, especially if you're here at I/O, you know there's a lot of talk about AI. Well, Angular has a very compelling AI story as well.
Okay.
So by the time we finish hanging out together today, you'll understand how Angular is improving that API. You'll also get a real good feel for where we've expanded our AI story. And then this is also very interesting to me. How is Angular reaching beyond the traditional developer experience to target even more users? Now, if you are ready, I need all of you to give me a big yeah! How is this my job? I can't believe that I could do this. This is amazing.
Mark is
All
awesome.
right, let's talk about these API updates. One of the things that we are so proud of on the Angular team is our ability and our reputation
for changing and evolving Angular. If you use Angular today, it is not the same Angular from 5 years ago. It's not the same Angular from 3 years ago. We've worked really hard to build that trust and that reputation. And we've delivered updates across the API surface. I mean, if you just think about what we've done with Signals, you think about what we've done with SSR. I mean, there's a lot of
Oh, look at that.
I'm really excited
I am
about
getting-
how we've improved the template story. We've launched things like let, we have the defer syntax, and our expanded and revamped control flow. But please believe we didn't stop there, because Angular templates are very, very good. Let's take a look at what we've done with something that's actually not as popular when people think about control flow and major updates. But let's talk about the switch statement. Now, here's a standard example that you may see in the code that you write today. We're using an order status property, and then there is a display message for each of these status. But if you notice, two of these display the same thing. And I can already hear you at your keyboards, at your desk saying, oh, this feels like something. It feels verbose. It feels like boilerplate. Can't the team do something better than this? Well, guess what? We can. And let me tell you what we can do. Now we've introduced multiple case matching with switch statements. So if you have multiple statements that have the same output, you can now make the code a little bit more concise. And this feels good, but we can go better, because we did something else here that is really, really fantastic. What about if you're using a union type when you're writing a template? You see, we used 3 of these types in our example, but what if they contained more types? Now, this is where some very small but annoying bugs can come up in your code. Because if you're working on a union type, and then if that union type changes, well, then your UI is what? It's out of sync. And that's one of those things where you might not think about until it bites you and you're spending a lot of time debugging. Or you're using your agent to debug and you're burning tokens. Either way, you don't want to have to experience this. We can do better here. Now we have something called exhaustive checks for switch statements, where if you add the default case and use the never keyword, you'll get something really fantastic, a compile time error. Now, this compile time error means that when you are authoring
Okay, that's really cool. So I knew about this one, but man, how many times have you guys run into this one? And I'm happy about this one, saying that so in TypeScript, the never type means that this type can't happen, and if it does happen, something is wrong, right? So if you set up a method and you say the return type of that method is never, then if it returns anything, then oh, you think they're already in 21.2? Wow. Let me get my volume back to where I wanted it. There's something going on where for some reason it's trying to play the audio through my mic also, and I'm not sure why. I'll need to figure that out for the future. So already in 21.2, I think that's true. I think that is true. We can test it out. We can test it out on stream and just see. But very, very cool. Very, very powerful. And it allows you to use type enums, right? Or type unions to make sure that everything works as expected. So very, very happy about this one.
Your code, you find this bug way
beforehand, saving you time and frustration. Now, that was a lot of talk about a switch statement. So what if I switched up? Switch. Okay, you got it. You got it. You got it. When you're writing Angular templates, one of the things that we know developers want to do is, they just want to inline functions. Because you may have a function or some logic that you want to implement, but you don't want to have to.
So this one isn't that new. I actually want to test something really quick.
Create another function.
Yeah, so it's definitely playing. Well, maybe I could turn off the desktop here. Does that work?
In your TypeScript class. And you're like, oh, just make it easy for me to inline this.
That's better.
Fine. Now you can do that. You can inline arrow functions in your templates. But
okay, this one I have mixed feelings about. It can lead to some better stuff, but we also know that as engineers and as people who write code, we're really, really good at abusing stuff like this. I like to separate logic from my template. And so I typically like to have like a handle or something like this. I understand why people want this. But for me personally, this one is a little bit frustrating. You guys let me know if the audio levels seem to be okay. I'm not sure why it's playing my desktop audio through the speakers, or through my mic. But this should solve the echo, at least for you guys.
Before you start writing your long, really complex functions, let me give you a few guidelines. This is for a small, short, quick function. Okay, anything that's long running belongs in your TypeScript class.
Totally agree with Mark there, 100%.
But if you have something quick, like this update, you can definitely do this here. And if you're worried about the impact on change detection, don't.
I'm actually a little bit concerned because we're doing a spread operation in this call. So I liked the original one where you're updating a counter or something simple like that. But doing a spread operation in this call, there's some logic here, right? You're calling the update. You're passing in this item, right? And you're passing in some value from that item. You're updating that item, right? And you're spreading that. There's some logic here. I'm not happy with this, but at the same time, I'm happy we've got the feature.
I know that in the community, there are two schools of thought. Some people say, don't call functions from the template. Some people say it.
Oh, he's calling me out here. He's calling me out here.
Fine. I work on the Angular team. I'm going to tell you something. It's fine. For short functions, it's fine. Friends at home, look at this face.
He's calling me out. He knew I was going to say something about this. He's calling me out here. This is awesome.
It's fine. All right. I would share some feelings.
I love Mark.
Is this a safe space for me? Okay, it's a safe space. I'm going to share some feelings. And I want to share some feelings about template errors.
Oh, no.
I find them to be very annoying.
Agreed.
Not only are they
Totally
annoying,
agreed.
it's very difficult to deal with.
100%.
If you have a crash change detection cycle. Because what happens?
Oh yeah, he's right here. 100%. He's preaching right here.
The screen goes blank, the users have a bad time. And in Angular, it feels like we should have a better solution. What do you all think?
Yeah, 100%.
What do you all think? Okay,
100%.
that's what I'm saying. You need a better solution. Fine. Then meet boundaries.
Oh hell yes.
Are
Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys. Michael spoiled this one for me. I knew this one was coming. I didn't realize he was gonna drop it right away. This is amazing. When I talked with Mark afterwards, he said that Jason Warner guy needs to be reined in. Also, everyone should give Michael Small $10. That Mark guy, dude, he's always looking out for you. But no, this app boundary thing, I'm not going to say anything about it because I'll wait for Mark to present it. This I'm very excited about. This, I think, puts Angular on par with React for error handling. That's what I'll say about it before he introduces it.
all right. Thanks. I'm so happy that you're happy. Let me tell you more about what boundary is.
This is so cool, you guys.
And at home, already figure out that this is for error boundaries.
Sending money to Michael.
Let me show you what the problem is, and then we'll show you how it actually works. You see, your application may have a component or directive that crashes your entire change detection cycle and leads to that infamous blank screen. And you're
or
kind
worse.
of out of luck right now if that happens.
Or worse, or things present.
So let's go through an example so you can.
So like it can even be more insidious than that, right? Like the application can appear to be working, but there might be a part of it. Like so you don't even get the blank screen. It might look like it's working until you click buttons or you try to interact with the application and suddenly it's broken. And let's say you filled out an entire form and you're like, now I've got to reset, refresh the page because the application's broken, right? So like the blank screen is the best case scenario. It means something's obviously broken. You may get into situations where it's not as obvious what is broken.
See it very closely. Now, in this example, we have some code, and then we have the rendered output in the browser. Now, here is a promotional widget for free shipping. Now, if this crashes because some bug made it into it, it really shouldn't stop the entire checkout flow.
Totally agree.
But it could, because here's what you may end up with. Crashes.
Like this is best case. This is best case.
Well, over time, you may lose users. And if you're working especially with something where revenue is involved and your application suddenly has less revenue, that's not what you want. So now you can add
a diplomatic way of saying you screwed up
into the template, and it gives you a way to isolate the errors in that particular code so the rest of your component can still work. But we can take it further because you can also have a backup UI, a fallback UI.
Yep.
And what makes this really awesome is to think about what it can open up in the future. You can even think about really cool things like what if.
So this is cool. This is very cool. Putting a boundary around your errors and then being able to display something, right? And he's not wrong here. a few years back, I worked for an auto auction. The auto auction made all of their money for the week in a 2-hour period. And, for every second you were down on the block being the auction block, you were losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when we moved to web UIs, we spent a ton of time making sure that they were performant and stuff like that. But a broken UI on the block was a big deal. So this is huge. Like, this is something I've been waiting for a long time.
You can do intentional retry logic if your component crashed. Very, very exciting. This will be landing as developer preview in Q3 2026. And
we'll be playing with this.
Give you exact dates on the Angular team. We work on it
as soon as it's ready. We'll be playing with this.
The team is really excited about it, and you'll see even more information in the upcoming week. Okay, yeah.
Did you guys? Did anybody hear? So they put out an RFC on this. I know the GDEs were informed about it because I remember talking to a couple of people about this back when they were working on it, and the retry logic and the boundary logic, and talking about what's captured and what is the context data that you'll be getting. And so there's a lot of exciting stuff about this. But did anybody here know about this before before Mark announced it? And I'm very curious. Just drop some messages in chat if you guys are excited, or if you guys have any questions or anything like that. I don't know a lot about it because I've only seen the RFC. I participated a bit in that, but very excited about this. This will give us, like I said, it will put us on par with React in error handling. The code is on GitHub, and Alex, thanks for being here, man. The code is on GitHub, and Nea is just slacking on stocking us. Yep. I've heard it from Michael. Yeah, very excited. There's some big wins here, and I'm very, very excited about this one. It's probably so, like, when we rank things, like my top features from Angular, right? If we're going back to the beginning, signals huge, signal forms. And then the error boundaries. Those are my top three. So you guys, I'm getting distracted, but this is Sunny. She's our newest pup. My daughter just let her into the room with me. She's a sweetie. She's got Australian Shepherd and I can't remember. What was it? Yorkie and Shih Tzu. She's not going to get very big, but she's just a cutie. So yeah. But she's in here saying hi, licking my toes. But yeah, those are my three big ones. I really, really like the direction the Angular team has been taking Angular lately. And here's so when we look at, like, the future of development, and I specifically, when I say this, I want to talk about, like, web development, but I honestly think mobile and even desktop is probably going to go this way largely. There's going to be a lot of agentic stuff going on in the development world, right? And you guys are like, well, duh, Jason, of course, right? But I mean even more than that. I mean, we're starting to see edge models, and Google announced Spark, right, which is one of their edge models. There's a whole bunch of edge models on Hugging Face, and the SLMs are getting better and better. What does this mean? This means that we'll probably be able to run an edge model and use something like A2UI from Google, an agentic flow that can help us do UIs. And the fascinating thing about that is, think about a UI that you guys have put together, right? Like a form. that maybe users complained about quite a bit, and that was difficult to understand and difficult to navigate. Well, now imagine that that form had some sort of way of chatting with it. And then imagine that over the course of chatting, imagine that the UI could change itself. So I'm thinking about my parents, and if you guys, you guys can tell from my gray hair that my parents are probably, fairly old, not really tech savvy, right? They're the people that are in the, everywhere. Hey, send a message to so and so, right? They're already using AI, but they're chatting with it, right? And they can't use the keyboards on their phone. They're texting by talking to it. So think about somebody like that, right? And think about them not being able to interact with a form, maybe on their phone or whatever. And then imagine that A2UI can switch the way the UI works. It can change it to be maybe more interview style, or it can simplify the form, or it can talk to them about the inputs on the form, or it can do stuff like that. And then look at the way Angular's going, right? Signal forms, error boundaries, signals themselves, right? We look at things that are being added by the community, like signal store, and things that allow us to control the state of the application independent of the application itself. And then we look at something like A2UI that allows an intelligent agent to build the UI and change the UI for the person who's interacting with it. And I think Google is positioning themselves very, very intelligently for that world. So yeah, a big part of Boundary is completing the resource story. Resource throwing errors is really obnoxious without fair, very fair. That's really good insight too. And that's the other thing is resource is a powerful utility. And I like that insight, Alex. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've done some interesting stuff for resource errors in the toolkit, and the RFC for resource utils in NGRX itself has some custom error handling. And one of the places where we fail a lot as front-end engineers is really in errors. And my hypothesis on this is, if you want to be successful in our field, at some point, you have to recognize that you have to stop thinking about every edge case, right? You have to start assuming that your software works. And the more you make those assumptions, the more you miss these edge cases and things like that. And that's one of the places where we as developers fail in developing front ends. It would be nice to have something similar to resource, but for updates. It would be great to have NGRX toolkit mutations in Angular. I agree with that. I think the community is doing a good job of stepping in to help where there are obvious needs. And the benefit to having the community step in is that we get solutions that work at the speed of the community. Because if you think about like Angular having to do something like this, they've got to make sure it's backwards compatible. They've got to do all the testing, right? And when you think about the Angular team, they're not that big of a team. But when you think about the community, and if we as a community started to get more comfortable with participating in community projects and things like that, we could start adding things to Angular on our own. And then that gives the Angular team time to sit back and be strategic about the stuff they bring in. I think they're being strategic now. And I think they're making good choices. But one of the things that's fascinating to me as I talk to some of the people who develop libraries is they're like, I can drop a library in React, and everybody's like, oh, cool, a library, I'm going to try it out. They'll turn around and drop that same style library in Angular, and everybody's like, oh, that didn't come from the Angular team, right? That's a common sentiment. I think as a community, we need to get better. And Michael's doing an amazing job participating with the NGRX extensions and participating with the community itself in helping to build these tools, right? Like the mutations and things like that, that allow us to get cool things, but they don't necessarily have to come from the Angular team. That's one of the, yes, exactly, Alex. The community can also narrow in, right? Very, very good point there. Agree. So Michael's agreed. Been wanting to help my alum Angular course update to resource, but now I'm wondering about what I would suggest with mutations. Talked with an author recently wondering about mutations. Yeah, and it's, if we go back and we, do I still have that drawing? Let's take a look at the Excalibur stuff that I have. Yeah, we do. We do still have these drawings, right? If we go back and we talk about stuff like this, where when we think about our application is really a very complicated, like when we talk about UI, our applications, most people think that the application is the pixels that get drawn to the screen, right? And that leads to a lot of the issues that we see here, where you've got like the server with logic and stuff like that, right? The reality is our applications are often much more complicated, and they wind up being these state machines. And so as the data travels and transitions in state, the UI is really there to communicate that transition to the user. And the reason that it's difficult to get mutations and things like that right is that these transitions are often very different among applications that may even appear to be similar. And it takes somebody who understands these application transitions within their application, within their specialty, to understand what makes sense, right? And that, like, when we go back to the big NGRX debacle, and I'm going to call it a debacle. It wasn't really a debacle. I think what Mike Ryan and Brandon Roberts did was amazing. What failed was the community wasn't listening to what Mike and Brandon were saying, and instead were saying everybody needs to know NGRX. Like when NGRX came out, if you guys, I don't know if you guys remember, but every job posting for Angular talked about NGRX. Even to this day, every job posting for Angular will often list NGRX. Not every, but a good portion of them, right? And the reason was we were applying NGRX to everything. But Mike and Brandon were saying, hey, wait, right? They came out with the Sherry principle and they had all this stuff, and they're like, hey, maybe NGRX isn't right for your application. So when you think about that, right, even some guys who are working on mutations and working on a unidirectional data flow and stuff like that are saying, hey, maybe it's not right for your application. And that's where things get difficult. And, you know, kind of what Alex is saying is, I totally agree with it. Mutations are really where the application starts to become difficult to reason about. And that's a big issue, right? And if we go out, and if the Angular team goes out and essentially creates a mutation, that needs to be able to handle the widest number of cases. Some people in the community hated Redux so much that they didn't know component store existed and think signal store is just more Redux. 100%, right? And I think that's one of the challenges that NGRX is struggling to overcome right now, is the name NGRX. If people see NGRX, they don't think of the people that are providing the technology. Like component store was amazing. Signal store is component store but better, right? they are adding some Redux-ish stuff to Signal Store now, but it's not Redux, right? But in Angular, NGRX is synonymous with Redux. And if you go to the, if you go to the React side of the world, they hate Redux too. They hate, all the different names for Redux that are out there too. And it's just because everybody over applied a pattern. And that's where mutations become much more difficult, right? Reading is not that difficult. You hit some sort of standardized API, you present a spinner, you present errors, you do, various things, but it's a mostly solved problem. When you talk about mutations, man, there's so many ways that mutations happen. And it becomes a much more complicated problem to solve. I really like what the NGRX extensions has done with mutations. I think they're an interesting way to go. One thing that I do know, like if I haven't worked with mutations in a while, I struggle with the abstraction sometimes, right? I need to remind myself how the abstraction works. So yeah, I think it was due to the complexity curve back then, or simply poor implementation that made some projects more complicated than necessary. I'm talking about the Angular 12 to 13 era. And yeah, if we go back even further, like when NGRX first came out, the Redux pattern, to me, is a lot like domain-driven design, right? DDD. And when you go talk to companies now, everybody's saying they're doing DDD. Domain-driven design is a very heavy pattern. And you often don't need that pattern for what you're doing, right? If all I'm doing is creating a website that displays kitten memes or puppy memes, right, to people, I don't need DDD, I don't need NGRX, I don't need all of this stuff, right? If, on the other hand, I'm building state that needs to be rehydrated, very, very complicated flows that need to interact with each other, well, now I'm probably needing domain-driven design. Well, that domain-driven design doesn't really factor in here, but I probably need Redux of some sort, right, to make sure that my data flows through in a way that makes sense, right? You might be talking about like an event bus or a CQRS style design, things like that, right? And if we need to be able to scale parts of the application independent of other parts on the back end, now we're talking about microservices. Now we're talking about domain boundaries. Now we're talking about places where DDD probably fits, right? The problem is most of us want to use the cool shiny things until the cool shiny things are no longer cool and shiny, and we're like, oh, we made a bad choice. But nobody ever wants to say, oh, we made a bad choice, right? So instead of saying, oh, we made a bad choice, we turn around and we go, NGRX, you suck, there's too much boilerplate, there's too much this, there's too much that, right? And open source people get this all the time, because we as engineers made a decision. That decision turned out to not be the right decision. We don't want to say that it was the wrong decision. We don't have a vendor contract with them, so we can't go and say, hey, you need to give us back money because we made a bad decision, right? We're getting this for free. They're giving it to us in their free time. So we get on our keyboards and we're like, NGRX sucks. It's rah, 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 whatever, right? Too much boilerplate, too much this, too much that. The reality is it didn't fit our situation in a lot of cases, right? It's not to say that there aren't legitimate and valid reasons to, tell people, hey, you could do better or things like that. But in a lot of cases, and I think NGRX and Redux really suffered from this because it looked like such a cool solution from the outside. But if you're not doing selectors right, if you're not doing updates right, if you're mixing logic in an improper way, if you're not listening to the people who understood Redux, it becomes a mess very, very quickly, and it's a mess that you have to clean up. Mutations are also complex because of UX application lots, optimistic, pessimistic, error notifications, retry, etc. Right? This is the guy, Alex is a guy who has done front end. He has done mutations. He's listing all of those pain points, right? And this is like when we talk about engineering and the failure of engineers to handle errors properly. And us needing to go through a happy path because we need our software to work so we don't burn out and and sit in the corner just rocking, holding our knees and crying. Right, we need that happy path, but there's so much that goes into errors, proper error messages, right? As developers, we often write errors that we understand but the people consuming don't understand. And often we don't even think about error conditions. And when we encounter error conditions, we're like, oh, that's a race condition. Oh, that's a boundary condition, right? And so we fail a lot with that too. But I totally agree with you there, Alex. Uh-oh, Ole, are you Rickrolling me, man? Let's see if I get Rickrolled. If I don't, I'll bring this up on the other screen. This is a tweet from Ole. Let's just bring this one up over here. We were all wondering why we hadn't heard about error boundaries earlier from Anea. So here's the explanation. The stream link is in the comments. Yep. Yep. Thanks for sharing. That is weird. Why can't I close this? Oh well. Yeah. Good job, Ole. Keeping Anea honest. But yeah, I think the community itself, there's a lot of people doing a lot of cool things, but one of the things that is interesting as I watch the community from where I am and look at it from my point of view too, and this is probably part of me projecting, but there's a lot going on. Everybody is navigating this weird, uncertain world of, am I building the tool that's going to put me out of work in a year, 2 years, 5 years? Who knows, right? And so there's a lot of people who are navigating things that are probably more difficult than we understand. And so as a community, I think it's healthy for us to recognize that it's okay to poke and make jokes, but also recognize that some of these people are out there, trying to keep their head above water, and don't have the time they used to have. Found the boundaries branch. I think as a mod, only I can link to it. I need to update that. I used to have it so that we could so that everybody could post GitHub. I had to take it down. I don't even remember what caused it, but I need to look at that for sure. Component store is amazing. Totally agree with you there, Ole. And yeah, Michael's posting the branch. People dropped over. Good to see everyone today. Have a good one. Yeah. See you later, Michael. Thanks for showing up, man. So yeah, let's but very, very excited about error boundaries and error handling. And I'm hoping that this gives us some ways of handling errors and reporting errors and solving errors that we had before in Angular, but it took some finagling to get to get error handling to work the way error boundaries work. And it never was exactly the right way, but you could inject, error handlers at different places, at the component level or at the router level or at the global level, right? And you could take advantage of Angular's injection like dependency injection, which that is like Angular's superpower is dependency injection. The fact that you can inject error handlers at different levels and it's going to find the one that you're using or that you intend for it to use, because you injected it at a component level, you know, like in a providers array or something like that. And there's a lot of power there. So this would be the last one then. I must have missed something. I must have missed something on that one, Sky Zero. This would be the last one. Or maybe he sent a link in my YouTube chat. Okay. I'm not seeing that link. Yeah, I'm not seeing that link. If you want to send it to me through, are you connected with me on X or on LinkedIn? If you want to send it to me through there, that would be I'd probably get it easier that way. I'm not seeing it. Oh, and look at that. Right as I said that, it decided to pop up my LinkedIn chat. Awesome. Thank you. Awesome for that, Streamlabs. Thank you, Sky Zero. I'll take a look at that link. So, very, very excited about the air stuff.
Oh, the applause. You can never clap enough for me. Please understand that. You can clap.
I love Mark.
All right, now let's talk a few more API updates that we think you will like.
Oh,
Forms has
man.
made a splash in the Angular community. It's our new robust form solution because here's what we did. We took the best parts of reactive forms and strongly typed forms, then everything you loved about template-driven forms,
Yes.
plus everything that you love about signals and mixed it together to create signal forms.
Yes.
And you all have signaled that you love it. Here's an actual quote. Thank you. Here's an actual quote. Okay, no one actually said I said.
I was gonna say. I was gonna say. Is that a quote from Mark? Already sent the link via LinkedIn. Let me take a look. Let's go take a look at my LinkedIn. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is the one that Michael was posting. Thank you for sending that over, Jaime. Yeah. Thank you for sending that over. I appreciate that. But yeah. that quote seemed too generic to be anybody but the DevRel from Google.
Feedback about signal forms and how it's transforming the way you compose forms in Angular. Now, some friends may not have had experience with it because it's been in developer preview. So let's walk through a quick example. Here's how you start. First, you define your model with a signal.
Yep.
Then you import the form function and you pass in that model to the form function. Now you have a signal forms. You have it right there. But you can take it further and provide things like a schema.
Yep.
And in that schema, you can do things like validation.
Absolutely.
And you can use our built-in validators. In this case, we're using the required validator that says that the schema payment type is required.
Yep.
But here's what makes it really interesting for you as developers. Your use cases are much more robust than this. So what about a custom validation? So here is an example of me defining a custom validation using the validate function.
Yep.
And what does this one do? It checks if the value of website starts with HTTPS. We pass in the fields that we want to match against, and then the function You understand this logic. This is just TypeScript. But check this out. This is the error that you returned if it doesn't match. So you get to decide what the kind of error is and what the message that the user can see. And if it works,
Correct.
you return null. Now, we've been working behind the scenes since we first announced it. Here's some of the things that are new about signal forms. One,
Okay.
full set of documentation. So we've improved
Yeah.
the documentation.
I do want to call out their docs here. And we've got their docs here, I believe. No, that's GitHub. It's here. I do want to call out their docs because the Angular team went above and beyond on these docs. Like, one of the things that I think everybody who, even if you stick with reactive forms or you stick with template driven forms, why you would, I don't know. But even if that's the decision that you make, I think everybody should read these first 4 pieces on signal forms. The overview gives an overview of what signal forms do, but this forms model doc, while it's focused on signal forms, this gives very, very good advice on how to build a model for a form. The form model design goes even deeper into it, helping you pick the best form model, helping you decide on how form models should be designed and things like that. And then the field state management piece here gives you an insight into what it means to bind a piece of data to the UI. And these 4 pieces are some of the best documentation I've ever read. And even if you guys never intend to use signal forms, I highly recommend, and let me throw this into the chat for you guys. I highly recommend reading this. And I want to call the team out specifically for this because this is such good documentation. Like, well beyond, they went way above and beyond for the documentation here. And it's the same way all the way down through signal forms. You guys are going to be so prepared to use signal forms by the time you're done with this documentation. And I really, really appreciate that from the team. So I definitely wanted to call that out.
Fixed a lot of bugs. You all have been trying it and letting us know what you think, and we've been working really hard to fix those bugs. And guess what? Now we have full support for Angular Aria and Angular Material.
And I think this is a big deal too. The reason that Angular Aria and Angular Material are a big deal is, well, Angular Material is the way that a lot of Angular applications build. That's kind of the look and feel that you get is a material look and feel. Angular Aria is a bigger deal because if we go back to our discussion earlier about A2UI, and we talk about what A2UI gives us and the ability for it to take maybe a difficult form and allow your users to chat with the application about the form and maybe decompose the form. Think about users who maybe can't even interact with your form because of disabilities of some sort, right? Think about A2UI to be able to use stuff that you've built using signal forms that it can compose, because signal forms are easier to compose. And think about the fact that those can be presented in an accessible way. This is a big deal. This is a very big deal.
Yeah. This is the time for spontaneous applause. That's right. So this is really, really exciting, and signal forms will be stable in Angular v22.
That's awesome.
So you can use this with confidence in your production application.
Like, this is huge. Like, version 22, stable, able to use in production. That's amazing. That's way earlier than I expected. And big props to the team. Big props. Like Alex, you and your team, huge props. I didn't expect this early, and I'm so excited that we're getting it.
I find Signal Form to be a bright spot for Angular. But another bright spot is Angular Aria, our fully accessible and fully customizable set of UI directives.
Yes.
Now, Angular Aria as a concept can be a little difficult to grasp. So what helps me usually is a good example. So let's take one. Here is an Angular Aria toolbar without any styles applied.
Nice.
This is right out of the box, the basic HTML that we provide. Now, this in its current form is fully accessible and ready for you to apply logic to.
Yep.
But let's make it more fun. My goal here is to turn this into a neon sci-fi theme for my users.
Nice, yes. Cyberpunk it up.
In the component template, this is what some of the markup looks like. This is a bit abbreviated. But notice that there's the NG toolbar and the NG toolbar widget. You need both of these directives to enable all the accessibility features that you're hoping for with Angular Aria and using the toolbar component. Now, how do we make it look nicer? Well, you apply the skills that you already have. Your CSS skills are what you use, your styles, your design system, whatever you do, where you work, you just apply it. So you can.
And this is the cool thing, right? Like you could do this with Daisy. You could do this with Tailwind. You could do this with your custom in-house design system. It's just CSS, but you get all the accessibility along with it.
In this example, I'm applying things like gap, display, padding, border radius, etc., to make the look that I'm going for. So let's see how it turns out. And this is what we get. Now, there is no magic behind the scenes that I didn't show you. All the code for this you can find on things like angular.dev, for example. We have exhaustive code examples of how you can style Angular Aria components to.
And if you look, this is all, I mean, we can tell he's using a grid, right? Or a flex because we've got a gap here. Oh, display flex. We can tell he's using flex. There's display flex right there, right? This is all CSS we all understand, right? We've got the padding to make sure that it sits the right place. We've got a border radius for, you know, rounding things off. We've got a background color. We've got a box shadow, a border, and a color. There's nothing here that anybody who understands CSS wouldn't understand. And that takes us from this, right? This is obviously a bunch of divs. And it takes us to this. And it's all using CSS, but we get all the capabilities, all the accessibility, all of that stuff. So the discussion is they're trying to pick up key pieces, right? Places where they're the biggest wins. I know that they want to try to serve as much as possible, but again, this is where the community is a big help, right? Where we can create things using the Aria building blocks. And so, you know, like things like calendars or things like that are much more difficult to do. Maybe they'll do it in the future. I don't know, right? Like I can't speak for them as a team. I don't know what their internal plans are. But what I can say is that we can build it. And, you know, if enough people create good stuff, it might be a way for the Aria team to go, oh yeah, people are creating calendars. This is a good implementation. Who knows, right? Things like that. But that's I think one of the things that Angular's giving us a lot of building blocks and really cool tools. Very low level, very composable tools that I think the next big leap in the Angular community will be when we as a community start creating libraries similar to the way Vue and React and the other platforms out there start doing that. Once we as a community start embracing the idea that, oh, they give us these really cool tools, let me go build a calendar, right? Or, oh, they gave us these really cool form tools. Let me go build something that validates, or right, things like that. I think we're going to see another big jump in Angular. Very, very similar to what happened around, the Angular Renaissance around Angular 15. I think we're going to see another big jump when the community really jumps in and starts embracing creating our own stuff. And that's a place where I can do better. Maybe Ole, we start thinking about building something with Aria, maybe a calendar or something like that doesn't exist, and start start being that example. That's something I can do better. But yeah, I don't know is the answer, but I also want to stress the fact that as a community, we've been given the tools to do a lot of the stuff and this was a weakness in Angular before. It was a lot more difficult to do the stuff that I'm talking about. There was a lot more obfuscated from us, and now we're getting a lot more baseline tools, a lot better building blocks that allow us to stay within the Angular framework, but to build better tools for us and the community. So yeah.
Angular Aria components to meet your needs. Here's how we've improved it since the original introduction. One, the APIs are stylized, and a lot of the things that you all as a community have asked for, we've taken care of.
Yep.
Signal forms fully supported.
Which is awesome.
And this is a big one. You wanted to test.
Yep.
So now test harnesses are available for Angular Aria components and directives.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, so spontaneous. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
That's what I love about Mark. He's giving a little golf clap himself, and then suddenly everybody claps.
That's so great. And I just showed you the toolbar. Remember, Angular Aria patterns, we have at least 11 patterns available. We're working on more. And you can take these patterns and create what you want for your users.
Yep.
And again, you bring the styles, you bring the business logic, and we bring the accessibility that helps you to serve all users, no matter how they use the web.
And I think that's the key piece here, right? When we look at what's here right now, an accordion, we can build things with accordions. Autocomplete, we can build things with that. Combo boxes, everybody messes up combo boxes. I've written combo boxes so many times myself, and then when my arrow keys don't behave the right way, or when I capture a tab improperly, or when I do an event improperly, like having a combo box that I can build on top of is huge. Tree and grid are going to allow us to do some really cool stuff. Menu bar, multi-select tabs, all of those are really cool. I know that there are things where like embedding trees in like a combo box or a grid in a combo box. I know that there's a little bit of roughness there. I know that they're working on it. But a lot of the basics are there for us, which is what I'm very excited about.
Available, we're working on more, and you can take these patterns and create what you want for your users. And again, you bring the styles, you bring the business logic, and we bring the accessibility that helps you to serve all users, no matter how they use the web. Angular Aria, another feature that will be stable in Angular v22.
That's awesome.
In our mind, we want to bring as many of the trusted APIs that you use for your application to stable so you can build with confidence. Not only is there Signal Forms, there's Angular Aria, but our asynchronous reactivity APIs are now moving to production. Resource and HTTP resource. So stable
very cool
all the way through. And again, you get to have the confidence that you want as a developer. You can learn more about all of these updates on angular.dev. All right. I love it. Thank you. Okay. The moment many of you have been waiting for, what is Angular's updated AI story? Did you know that last year, On this very stage, I stood up here so proud, filled with joy to announce Angular.dev/AI, which is the home for AI and developers using Angular.
Yeah, I agree,
And
Ole.
since then, we've expanded our story significantly.
100%. I totally agree with what you just said there. The Angular team did a great job with version 22. Stable signal forms is huge. All of this stuff there is huge, and it represents a lot of work behind the scenes. Like, the team has been working so hard. And man, I wish I could get rid of that. But signal forms, Angular ARIA, resource, and HTTP resource can't be overstated either. Being able to create our own resources and being able to create, work with HTTP resources and have spinners and all of that stuff for us. This stuff is all a lot of work, and the team worked very, very hard. Yeah, it's just all getting better. And like, here's the thing. If Angular 22 had dropped and they just said Angular ARIA was stable, I would have been like, yeah, that's pretty good. That's awesome. I'm happy about that, right? If it had dropped and they just said, hey, you know what? HTTP resources is stable. We're still working on resource. I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. Perfect. Awesome. I'm happy, right? Like, if they dropped any one of these by themselves, I would have been like, this is a good release. I'm very excited about it. They dropped all of them. And not only did they drop all of them, they dropped my absolute top desire in Angular 22. That's huge. That's a lot of work and a lot of love from the team for us as consumers of Angular. I mean, I totally agree with you, Ole. It's all getting better. They did a bunch. This is a big release. And it's a good release for IO because Mark gets to talk about all these cool things, right? But there are a lot of people behind the scenes, and this doesn't even touch on a whole bunch of other things that people like Doug have done for the compiler, and man, I can't name names. I better not name names because I'm going to miss somebody. But these are the big ones, right? There's a whole bunch of other big ones behind the scenes that don't get talked about as much, that there are a whole bunch of people. Like, this release is huge. So I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to get in and start just experimenting and seeing how this stuff interacts with the workflows that I've started to adopt. I'm so very, very excited. And that's where the AI story stuff, right, becomes
the moment many of you have been waiting for.
This becomes very interesting.
What is Angular's updated AI story? Did you know that last year, on this very stage, I stood up here so proud, filled with joy to announce Angular.dev/AI, which is the home for AI and developers using Angular. And since then, we've expanded our story significantly. Let's talk about how developers can build with AI right now. AI has changed so much. If you think about 6 months ago, the world has moved so rapidly since then.
So true. So very true.
We thought MCP was great then. Then there was a little time where we were like, well, do we need MCP? Now MCP is stronger than ever, but now we have agents because we have so many technologies that we can use to build
and web MCP
applications. And the stream of new ideas does not stop. So the Angular team, what we're doing is trying to think as thoughtfully and meaningfully as we can about how do we empower you as developers to build apps with agents, with your AI tooling, and all the ways that you like to build. And the first piece of that formula is Angular MCP.
Angular MCP.
MCP, or Model Context Protocol, is the way for giving agentic environments the tools that they need to accomplish tasks. Now, Angular MCP comes with some special tools.
So this is one area where I am behind, and it frustrates me a little bit because I am behind. But where I want to experiment with you guys, at my job, we're concerned about security. like external agents is something we're really trying to figure out. The other thing is MCP. Um, and security and stuff like that is a big deal. And so I don't work with MCP because right now we aren't allowed to use MCP at work. Um, and so this is one place where I'm really happy Angular is doing this research for me. I want to start looking at the Angular MCP with you guys.
Already, there's things like the AI tutor. It could look for examples to give to agents in order to be able to write more modern code. We can find best practices, lots of tools, but we've added some new things that we think you'll really love. When I have been writing applications, one of the hardest things for me is having to rely on ng build as the way that the server gets built. And
Yeah.
depending on your agentic tooling, that workflow can feel a little disjointed. So now we've added MCP tools, one for dev server.wait for build, which allows an agent to build, wait for the output, review the output, and then use that output to influence what the agent does next. Along with that, we have dev server.start. Perhaps the agent wants to start the dev server to run it in the browser or do something for you. Now you have control from an MCP server to do that. We also have dev server.stop to be able to stop the server from the agent's point of view. But that's not all. Look at all the tools that we have to empower you to build what's next for the web using Angular.
And these are really cool. This is where the how do I NX is an amazing tool. NX has taken a lot of my knowledge from the Angular CLI. And this is where, like, I'm not saying using NX is a bad thing. Hey, Alex, thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. But when we look at this stuff and the stuff that they're adding, like the MCP and wait, hopefully NX brings this to their tooling too, right? Because now they can look at the Angular CLI and wait for it and things like that. And I'm not saying anything against NX. I actually love NX, and I recommend that everybody use NX still to this day. I really wonder what is the future of a tool like NX as the Angular CLI becomes more powerful, and as we get MCPs from Angular that can give us more powerful interactions with the Angular CLI, and where you can start building agents that can do best practices. And I mean, NX is always going to provide first in class mono repo and stuff like that. But for smaller applications, I'm very curious, like, how do these pieces fit together? And I don't have the answers. This is just more me wondering as I look at the very cool stuff that we've got here from the Angular MCP.
MCP, the AI tutor, all the new dev server controls. There's the modernized tool that can help you to identify places where you can modernize your Angular application. There's the on-push migration.
Wait, where is that one? Modernize my Angular app. Oh, probably the CLI get best practices. Zoneless migration, search documentation. It's probably the get best practices. I'm very curious what the modernized tool is. We may have to experiment with that and see if, let's get the Angular MCP up and running and then see what it comes up with, like maybe on the Sudoku game, right? The Sudoku game has been going for years and can probably be modernized in quite a few ways. I'm very curious what it would find.
There's so many more things, and we're constantly thinking about what else we can do. If you want to get started with Angular MCP, here's what you run: ng MCP to get the configuration to add to your agentic environment.
Nice.
But let's take this a little bit further. See, I've found in my development experience is that when I mix MCP servers and tools, I can create something really, really special, a really
Yep.
special developer experience. So what happens when you use Angular MCP with Chrome DevTools for agents? Let's take this example prompt that I ran. I want to update the home page of this application because I want to show performance showtimes like at a theater. But I want to take a screenshot of the home page to verify the changes. Why do I want to do that? Has anyone here ever asked an agent to do something and then it said that it did it, but it didn't do it? And then you go in this loop. You're like, hey, I asked you to do it. It's like, oh, you're absolutely right. And it still doesn't do it. Okay, so
Yep.
now I'm
Yep.
asking for an extra step. Well, verify that you actually did something using a screenshot. Let me show you what the workflow would look like. First, you use Angular MCP to build the application. Then the agent can use the start command to start the application. Then we can turn control
This is cool.
Chrome DevTools for agents to actually go to the browser.
This is
That's
very
where it
cool.
starts to get really special. And then you can even ask Chrome DevTools for agents to snap a screenshot. Now, this is just text. This is not as exciting. Let's watch it in action. So in this example, first I'm entering the prompts into the CLI tool. All right, now as the agent is thinking, it's going to start to figure out, well, which tools do I want to use?
I'm
All right,
looking.
so it read through the code, started to make some code
I'm
changes.
looking to see the agent that he's using.
See, there it was already using the wait for server so it can get some of that output so it can influence what it does next. Then it opened it in the browser to verify, but then here I go. I actually want to see the screenshot. Now, this is
Nice.
with a small application. Think about what you can create when you combine multiple MCP servers to do these advanced agentic workflows. Because now there's no denying whether or not the changes I requested were done or not. That's a lot of power for the future of how you build. If you want to get started with Angular MCP, here's where you can go.
Perfect.
Angular.dev/AI.
We'll be doing this.
Then, if you want to check out Chrome DevTools for agents, head over to github.com/Chrome DevTools/Chrome-DevTools-MCP.
Very cool.
The next piece of the story are agent skills.
Yes.
I actually love agent skills as a mental model for me to understand how to empower agents
Yep.
to cover the gap
Yep.
between the training data and the new APIs. For example, with Angular, as we talked about before, we're always updating our APIs and we're expanding the surface, but training data happens at a time that we don't get to control. But with agent skills, we've been able to do things like give it give it the skills it needs and the tools for things like Angular Aria and Signal Forms so you can get modern Angular applications. The first skill I want to just highlight is our Angular developer skill. Now, Angular developer skill covers.
We've been using these with the Angular dynos, and I'm going to continue to use these. These are very, very good skills.
The essentials for building modern Angular applications. But here's what's awesome. It's not just a dump of the documentation into a skill file. We optimize it down to less than 140 lines of code. And because we're using progressive disclosure, only the parts of the skills that are needed are loaded at that time. And if more things are needed, more context.
That's a very important piece, and that's one of the pieces that I spend a lot of time talking with people at work about, because I'm part of the AI governance team. And part of that is reviewing skills. And when you get people who are dumping, like, I don't know, 7,000, 8,000 token files as a skill, you have to recognize that those skills are loading 7,000 to 8,000 tokens every time they're added as context, which is almost every time you make a query, right? It's got to parse all of that context. And there's some caching and there's some windows and there's different things going on, right? But the reality is you're sending 7,000 to 8,000 tokens and it's parsing a whole bunch of stuff. Well, what if you could take that down to like 1 to 200 tokens and give the AI agent the ability to grab the stuff as it needs it? And that's the partial disclosure stuff that Mark's talking about here. And it's an important concept that I think, as you're working with agents and stuff in your day-to-day job, making sure that you're using partial disclosure, making sure that you're only providing the context that's needed, right? We know what happens when context windows fill up. We know how agents degrade as those context windows fill up. And a lot of people use like /compact, which burns more tokens to compact that window and things like that. As tokens become more and more expensive, things like partial disclosure and allowing agents to be much more intelligent with the information that they've got and pull in the information when they need it is going to be bigger and bigger.
Needed, we've provided a set of reference files that are only loaded as needed. That's Angular Developer. What about our other new Angular skill? Well, there's Angular New App. Let's say you've heard a lot about Angular, but you are using a new agentic development environment. You don't have anything set up. Well, you can use the Angular New App skill in conjunction with Angular Developer, and the Angular New App will configure your environment to use Angular. But that's not it. Now, some of you in this room are actually, and watching at home, some of you are contributors to Angular and you like to open pull requests. But one of the things that's really hard is to know where to start. Well, we've set up a list of contributor skills that you can use to understand the mental models required for the agents and even for humans.
That's cool.
To become contributors of Angular.
Very cool.
So glad you like that one.
This is one place where I think AI, the contributor skills for writing better documentation, 100% sky zero. The issue that a lot of projects, and it doesn't matter if they're open sourced or where you work or whatever, there's a lot of knowledge that exists, but the discoverability of that knowledge is extremely low. And even if the discoverability is good, the amount of time that you spend parsing and reading documentation to find that specific piece of knowledge that you need, and then say you find that specific piece of knowledge, and then 6 months down the road, you forget what it is, but you remember that it's in some documentation somewhere, blah, blah, right? Like, we've all done this over and over and over again. Well, what if we can interact with our code and our documentation at the same time? And LLMs are incredibly good at handling just immense tons of text, right? Just these walls of text. Where you get an email, your eyes glaze over, and you're like, "Hey, summarize this for me," right? Discoverability is a big deal, and having the AI teach humans, "Hey, this is what you need to do," is a big deal. This is one of the places where I think AIs truly make us much better as devs. I mean, there are a lot of places, but this place is where I think they stand head and shoulders above everybody else.
So you can check this out. And I've read through these, and I've actually found them to be helpful for me because Angular's API surface is vast and robust. It's hard to know everything. But these help me to understand where to start if I'm wanting to make a change. So check out the contributor skills in the Angular/Angular agent directory. All right, Angular skills are available today, so please use them.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Wherever you do your agentic workflows, and let us know what.
There's one thing that's difficult here, and I think that the more secure companies are going to struggle with this versus the companies that don't have to be that secure. And what I mean by that is there are certain industries and certain companies within those industries that have to be held to a higher standard, or even like the government, like, the federal government, or, the governments of the countries that they're in require a much more secure and much more strict practice. Sometimes you can't use these skills without vetting them through a vetting process. Or you may just not even be, like, for a long time, it's just no outside skills. We now have a vetting process where I work, but we still are very concerned about external skills because skills can come in looking totally benign, and then they could read a web page, and the way that web page is constructed could cause the skill to become no longer benign, right? And it may not even be intentional on the part of the skill. It may be intentional on the part of the person who designed the web page, or who knows what, right? And so there's a lot of concern around skills, and that's where things like sandboxing become a big deal. And that's why, last week when we were talking, I want to work with you guys on how do we sandbox things and how do we protect things. There was a big issue recently where secrets and stuff were stolen because people were using certain agents and certain skills. We can protect ourselves from that by proper sandboxing and things. But I'm not saying don't use Angular skills. But what I am saying is know the rules of the organization that you're using. Like for me, I'm going to use Angular skills all the time in my personal stuff. No problem. No questions asked, right? When I go to work, I'm going to understand what are the work recommendations. And that's what I want to say here, right? Definitely start using them in your personal stuff. They're very, very good, very, very well thought out. And I'm not saying that they're dangerous at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that your work may feel differently than I do. Your work may feel differently than the Angular team. And so make sure, especially in today's job market, that you're up to date and you understand, your work stance on skills, on agents, on MCP and stuff like that. And make sure you're working within that framework. And then at home, do what I do and learn to use this stuff on your own so that you can provide informed information to your work when these discussions come up.
You think if you have any issues that come up or any feedback you want to share with us, like how much you love it and how great it is and how you can't wait for us to make more, definitely open the GitHub issue. We would really love to see it. All right, let's talk about vibe coding. Now, we've seen a big boom in the development space of this new community of developers that call themselves builders. Now, these are people who want to bring their ideas to life, but they don't have the same skills of code to do that. But you know what? I feel like this. If you are building great apps, you are welcomed with us.
Yeah.
You can use Angular to build your next great idea,
Yeah.
whether you know how to code or not. And here's how some of the ways that we've made that happen. We worked really closely with the Gemini Canvas team for the web app, where you can specify in the prompt the technology that you want to use, which is Angular in this case, to create an application.
I saw a demo of this. This is very cool.
Now, my kid plays sports, and we have to rotate who brings the snacks. But some of these parents are not rotating. I'll be honest with you. I'm tired of bringing snacks all the time. All right, so we're going to have an app that's going to help us keep track of who brings the snacks. Now, here are the results that I got from that single prompt, and I'll tell you, this is just the beginning of what you can do from this vibe coding experience. You can take this code and chat with Gemini to extend it still in Angular, or you can go and download the code and make changes yourself. You can take it to whatever environment that you want. It is your choice, however you want to work. What about in Google AI Studio? They just released a fantastic suite of new advancements in their vibe coding experience. So let's talk about something you can do here. First, if you want to get started, in the configuration panel, you get to select your technology. So you can pick Angular from the configuration panel. And check this out. As a parent, I got a lot of bones to pick, so here's another one. I'm just airing out all of my feelings.
Airing out his dirty laundry.
When I learned math, especially multiplication tables, I wrote them over and over again until I memorized them.
Oh, I remember that.
My teacher tells me I have to quiz him with math facts all day, which means I have to walk around like, hey, son, what's 5 times 5? What's 4 times 8? Nobody wants to do that.
Nope.
I don't want to do that.
Nope.
So,
nope. I get you, Mark.
Genius, and I have tools that can empower my genius ideas. So here's my prompt. I need a math facts app to help my third grader improve multiplication skills. Now make it use flashcards and keep track of the progress of specific facts that they struggle with.
Very cool.
Now here is my one-shot result. Okay, this is just from one shot. I did not edit this more, right? But I could also refine this app in the browser. I can update it, or again, I can chat with Gemini, and I can add tools like Firebase. I can do so many things from the browser. See, I want you to think about the power of vibe coding beyond what it means for who gets to code or not. Think about what you get to create. Because this is the opportunity to bring those things that you didn't have time for. And now you have the tools that empower you to create great applications.
Yeah,
And then you can
that's a
take
good point.
vibe coded in Google AI Studio, bring it into your IDE, and continue the work. Because I know you're Angular professionals, and I know you got all the skills.
That's a
So
very
use all
good
the tools
point.
to your advantage to create the next great application. What an incredible time to be an Angular developer. With the power of our expanded API surface, you can see the things that we're doing. We have the new boundary coming up. We've improved our templates. That doesn't only benefit you as developers. We've added things that benefit agents because agents have their way of coding. Like, oh, that actually makes sense. We should add this. And now even the agentic workflows are smoother. We've expanded our AI story with the MCP tools and the new Angular skills that we really hope that you will try out. And then think about the integrations that we have with teams like Gemini Canvas and AI Studio to enable developers to build applications in the web in Angular. A powerful framework for building scalable web apps. Now you can build in a web app. What a time to be alive. Angular continues to be a rock solid foundation for building what's next for the web. And Angular version 22 will continue this story and announce even more features that will be available to developers. Version 22 launches the week of June 3rd, 2026. So be sure to tune in.
Very cool. Very cool.
If you want to learn more about the things that I'm talking about and you want to be tapped in with what's coming for Angular, be sure to head over to angular.dev. And thank you for hanging out. You all have been fantastic. Get out there and build great applications.
Mark's awesome. I love Mark. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Very cool. The boundary stuff, very cool. It's a lot of fun to see that coming together. You guys let me know what your favorite part was, and the parts that you guys are most looking forward to. I do want to get back in a little bit and get a little bit of code written, or at least get the upgrades going on. I've got about a half hour. If you guys were a little bit late, my wife's grandmother passed away yesterday. And so we've got some family stuff going on. But I wanted to make sure to stream today. The reason we were watching Mark is there was a lot going on this week. I had a daughter graduate. You guys saw the new puppy. My wife's grandmother passed away. I didn't have time to prepare. I'm very glad that Mark came prepared today and helped me out. But no, it was really good to be able to watch that and react. And thank you guys for your comments as we were watching that. Very cool. But let's finish up what we were doing. I did do a couple of things beforehand, and let's see if I can make this bigger. How do I make this bigger? Zoom in. There we go. So let me know if you guys, if this is easy enough to read. But last week we started with the Apollo to Angular plan. And so we've got all of this stuff, right? So it's recognizing that we're on version 6, we need to get to 13. It's saying Apollo Angular plus client upgrade, replace the Apollo module plus Apollo options. What I do want to do is take a look at this implementation plan. It's using Claude Sonnet right now, which is fine. Yeah, we can use Sonnet. Actually, you know what? Let's try Flash. I want to try. I want to try their Flash model just really quick and see how that goes. But what I want to do is tell it, hey, we use NX. Can the implementation plan be improved by using NX? NX migrate. And let's see what it comes up with. So it is searching the web for it. Oh, so it did update it. So it did change how NX migrate works, why it isn't applicable. Neither Apollo Angular nor GraphQL CodeGen publishes NX migrations. Okay. So it's going to manually upgrade them and do the stuff for us. So it really didn't change anything, so we're good there. One thing I want to do before we get into this too much further is I wanted to get the anti-gravity. I wanted to get the anti-gravity stuff here. So let's go search for some packages here, and I want to find the anti-gravity CLI and see if the anti-gravity CLI is available. No. What sources? Sources, select all. So it looks like we don't have a package manager piece here yet. It might do it in the future, but if you go here, they've got instructions for installing anti-gravity on all of your different, things, right? All your different OSs and stuff like that. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to grab the Windows install. And let's get anti-gravity installed for my CLI. Suspicious activity blocked. Of course. Of course. We're gonna pause. We're gonna pause this for a second. Let me move this over to the other screen. So it was the antivirus that blocked it. So, can I pause? We're going to pause it for just a little bit. And we're going to try running this again. So there we go. So it says I need to restart my terminal. So we'll go ahead and restart my terminal. Because what I'm curious about is how well this stuff works together. So let's go to dev / full stack dynos. And from here, if I run AGY, I should set up anti-gravity. I'm just going to use a terminal. Yeah, I don't care if, yes, I trust this folder. So there we are. Now we're in anti-gravity, and we've got this. We're using Gemini Flash, and I'm curious. What should be the first step based on the current implementation plan? I'm just curious if it can see the implementation plan from here. Yes, we'll give it permission to do get status. We're going to give it permission to run get logs. We're going to give it permission to run the files. To get child item. I'm curious, can I connect this to so we're going to cancel this. It's obviously not finding the implementation plan from anti-gravity. So let's see, how can I connect to my running anti-gravity application? So it's trying to find some stuff. It's not finding it. That's fine. Is it /exit? Yeah, it is. So we'll clear that out. So what do we get here? I'm not even sure. It's a Gemini project. It's from the CLI. We're probably going to ignore this. Because the CLI set some stuff up. But let's go back to anti-gravity here. And so Apollo Angular plus a client upgrade, appconfig.ts. So we need to do that. Dependency version bumps. So bump the versions in package.json as above. Run pnpm install. Update the app config.ts. So we're going to tell it to go ahead and run steps 1 and 2 from the plan. So did it already bump package JSON for us? Package JSON, Apollo Angular is what we're looking for. So it did bump Apollo client, Apollo server. What were the other ones that it needed to bump? So Apollo-Angular. Where is my Apollo-Angular? Oh, there it is. It bumped it to 13. We're going to tell it to allow pnpm install in this project. So now it's running the pnpm install. So we can see it bumped the code gen to 7. All this other stuff has been bumped. Then it's going to try and build the dynos. So we're going to allow it to build that. We can go ahead and oh, interesting. It's already on to step 3. I only asked it to do steps 1 and 2. I am a little bit concerned that it went on to steps 3. We're going to allow it to run the so now it's updating that. We'll allow it to run Angular dynos here. I'm curious what it changed here. So this changes to be variables. So there are some significant changes here in the mutations and stuff. Um, so now it's running the code gen. Now it's going to run the GraphQL to regenerate the schemas. Now it's going to run the tests. Three files changed. So it's changed the Apollo options to use the inject. Fascinating. And now it's running the tests. So I don't have zone. We're gonna exit out of this. It's the testing is not going to work, but let's take a look and see what we got. So I'm going to ignore this file. We're going to add that as an ignore. We'll stage our get ignore, our package JSON. So we upgraded all the stuff here. So it looks like the variables stuff is really the changes here. The mutate adds variables, more mutate stuff. Great. Our app config was changed from using Apollo options to using provide Apollo. So that works. And our PNPM lock file. So we're going to stage this stuff and then we're going to test to see how it works. So we're going to push this. Okay, so I need to start my Docker container, and then we can start the server. So it looks like we're good here. Yeah, database is ready to accept connections. Perfect. So here we're going to pnpm exec nx serve dynos -api. And then we'll go ahead and serve the Angular Dynos application. Well, let's see this. Hopefully it builds this. Nothing here. The address is already in use. Is the address already in use? Because The server is running here. Let's go ahead and shut down Antigravity really quick and just see. Yeah. So Antigravity still had stuff running. That's fine. We'll bring it back up when we need it. Here, we're going to pnpm nxserve Angular dynos. And I'm glad that Warp was able to figure out the symlink issue. I did want to call that out. They were very, very helpful, very, very friendly. So it looks like everything's running here. So let's bring up our application. I believe this is it. Nope. Let's just look for localhost 4200. There we go. So it looks like everything came up and we're in a good state. Let's go ahead and refresh. So that looks good. If we swap our filter to has feathers, that's working. If we swap our filter to no feathers, that's working. No filter is working. So let's see if we can add a dinosaur. So our dinosaur's name is test, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say this one has feathers. We'll give it height in meters. We'll give it a weight, and we'll save this. And it looks like it's saved. There's our test. Let's turn to has feathers. There it is. No feathers. It's not there. With no filter, it shows up again. Let's hit the delete and say, yes, we want to get rid of this dinosaur. There we go. So everything seems to be working there. But let's try and turn this one to no longer having feathers. And yeah, our save button still doesn't work in our edit. So we're actually to the place. We're actually to the place where we've got everything upgraded that we need to. We just went through a major upgrade for Apollo. And this all is working just as expected. Wait, what happened to... Interesting. What workspace was this in? Let's put it in this workspace. How did this wind up in a new workspace? Fascinating. What is this workspace even called? Meetup. Let's just bring one up for localhost 4200. There we go. So we're in a good place. it's interesting that there's that delay there and then it's gone. I'm not sure what causes that, but we're good. Yeah, I think we're in a good place. And it's right on time. That's crazy. That actually lined up very, very well with what I need to do. So we'll go ahead and exit this. And so let's take a look and just see NCU format group. I'm glad that upgrade went so smoothly. So if we look, we've got a couple of GraphQL stuff, some Nest stuff, Daisy post CSS, prettier, that stuff. We've got some linting stuff to figure out. We've got Zod to figure out. Apollo server. We need to upgrade Apollo server. So there's a bunch of stuff here that we'll upgrade. We'll take care of that next time. That's my daughter. So we will see you guys all next week. Thank you guys for hanging out. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Looking forward to next week. And you guys have a great rest of your weekend and have a great